Reviewing the Laneway dress. Hello and welcome. I'm Akram Birth, and you're watching Akram's Ideas, bringing creative and crazy ideas to life. In this episode, I am sharing with you a pattern review / collaboration. So myself, along with Claire from Penguin and Pear, decided to do a little pattern review collab. Basically, we sew up the same dress, share it with you on different body types, and tell you our experiences and some of the issues or successes that we had with the pattern. And the pattern that we actually chose to collaborate on is the Laneway dress by Jennifer Lauren Handmade. And this was a very exciting project for me because I actually got the Laneway dress over a year ago, maybe 2 years ago now. It was actually gifted to me by Natita from Natural Dane as the Kittenish Behavior pattern swap. And I think it was either like 2016, 2017. And I was really excited about that pattern. And I've just never gotten around to actually making it up. So when me and Claire got together about this collaboration, we decided the Laneway dress would be perfect. So let's talk about the successes of the Laneway dress first. So I actually am wearing my first toil or wearable toil of the Laneway dress, and then over here on my little mannequin I've got a second version of the dress. So the dress itself has some really lovely details. It's got these bust pleats, it's got this asymmetrical collar, which is one of the reasons that I love this pattern so much, is this collar detail. And it's got variation. So you've got the asymmetrical collar, you've got a symmetrical collar version, and then you also have a traditional just scoop neck collar. The dress I've seen on a lot of different people on Instagram. I believe Amanda from I Sew A Lot sewed up a version a while back, and it's just super lovely. As for the availability of the pattern, you can get it in a PDF version right now. Jennifer Lauren Handmade patterns are traditionally just digital downloads, but she has gone into the forte of doing printed patterns, and I believe you can only get her latest pattern as a printed pattern at the moment, but she's going to go back and release some more printed patterns. But it wasn't a big deal. Like I said, the pattern was gifted to me, and when it was gifted, it was actually printed out on large scale paper, so I didn't have to tape anything together, which was another bonus. Another major plus about this pattern is it came in multiple cup sizes, which you've got a B cup, a C cup, a D cup, and that you can choose from for the bodice piece. And I thought that was an excellent feature because you have more options with fitting. The instructions on the pattern are excellent. I've sewn a couple of Jennifer Lauren's patterns before, especially the gable top, which I absolutely love. So the instructions in all her patterns are really simple, really straightforward. The dress construction is super easy. The collar, I was hesitant about the collar, and actually this dress that I first made, I sat it there for almost a week before I actually attached the collar because I didn't want to ruin the dress because I couldn't figure out the collar. But the collar attachment was super easy, and I probably should have done that right after I whipped up the rest of the dress. So everything about the pattern has a ton of pluses, and you would think simple construction, the amazing instructions, the options with the cup sizes would make this dress an easy sew. But unfortunately, that was not the case for me. To see more episodes like this, be sure to click the like button, subscribe to Akram's Ideas, and hit the bell icon to get notified of new episodes. I had all sorts of fitting issues, and as I was telling my husband the other day, the more you sew, the harder it gets. And I think it goes back to that old saying that ignorance is bliss. When I first started sewing, I sewed a ton of clothes. I'd have a whole weekend and I'd sew like 3 or 4 dresses. And the reason is because sewing isn't hard. Fitting is hard. And I wasn't even fitting myself. If I could actually get it on over my head, I would say that was a success. But now that I've sewn for quite a while, I don't actually wear a lot of my early makes because I'll put it on and I'll be like, this doesn't fit right. Like, it's off, or the shoulder's coming too forward, or the back's too tight. And I don't want to do that anymore. I'm really looking towards actually fitting my garments so that they fit me correctly. And that's what made this dress so darn difficult. So we'll start with this first dress. As I said, the Laneway pattern comes with multiple cup sizes. So by tradition, I am typically a C cup. And the way that I've learned to measure cup size was that you take the difference between your upper bust and your full bust. So that would put me at a C cup. However, in Jennifer Lauren's pattern instructions, and where it talks about fitting and sizing your pattern, she has you measure the under bust and take the difference from your under bust and your full bust, which I'd never done before, which would put me at a B cup. But I was really nervous. I didn't want to make something too small. So I decided to go ahead and go with the C cup. But I had all sorts of fitting issues. This was the end result of the fitting issues. Now, I did flat lay the pattern and I made some measurements, and I knew that it wasn't going to be quite right, but I figured I'd cut it out, baste it, and then make adjustments because I knew it was going to be a little too big to begin with. So I did some adjustments, but again, I don't really know if I made the right adjustments. So let's talk about this first one. I'll come up a little bit closer. The first problem I have is that there's a lot of room in the front bodice here. It's very droopy. And I believe that's because this one is the C cup, and I really should have cut the B cup according to the pattern instructions. And so I've got a lot of volume inside of this area here. I had a lot of folds right here around the tummy area as well. So I assumed that not only was the bodice too wide, it was too long. So when I finally attached the skirt, I took out about 1/2 inch, maybe 3/4 inch around the waist. So I pulled everything up a little bit, and so I've shortened the waist on this pattern. I also, oddly enough, I had so much volume right here that I brought in the side seams. I brought in the side seams maybe about 3/8 of an inch. The problem is that while I had a bunch of volume here, the back was too tight. So I've only sewn, I'll turn around, I've only sewn the back at 3/8 of an inch instead of, and it may, was it? No, it's 3/8 of an inch. I believe. Maybe it's 1/4 inch. I can't remember. I know for sure that in total, I added 3/4 of an inch back into the dress by removing some inches from the back bodice. So while I brought in the side seams, I took it back out on the back because the back was too tight, and I did the smallest seam allowance that I could on that back seam. So I'm just very awed by the fact that it didn't fit quite right. I do also have some weird issues with the pockets being a little gapy, and I'm not sure why, because according to the pattern, the skirt should have a sort of hip allowance for 47 inches, and I only needed like 43. And so, but I feel like it's gaping here. Now, it may be because of the weird seam allowances that I had to put into the dress. So I had a tight back. I still feel like the back of the dress is kind of tight, but I have all this kind of excess fabric in the front that feels weird. The other thing is, once I actually get the sleeves on this dress, I can't move in this dress. And I think it goes back to the problem being in the back of the dress. I got to a point where this was wearable. It's not perfect, but it's wearable. So I thought, you know what? I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna make a second version. So with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and switch and show you some of the issues with version number 2. Now, this is toil number 2. And I feel in some ways that this is worse than the first one. In some ways, it's better than the first one. I decided after making this one, I put a photograph of it out in one of the sewing Facebook groups asking for opinions. And there were some suggestions about doing a narrow shoulder adjustment, but I felt like the shoulders fit right. So I wasn't sure, and the dress was so easy to make and the instructions were so good. I'm like, you know what, let me go back to the instructions and let me just make the cup size that the pattern says I should make. So that's what I've done here. I've made a B cup, and you can already see all that gaping went away. So that was the right choice here. But that was not all, because I had to make adjustments to this dress too. So I did not have to adjust the length of this bodice like I did with this one. And it may also be, let me point out that I have different fabrics here. So this fabric, well, they're both kind of like a cottony fabric. This one has a lot more drape to it. And it has a little bit softer touch. So it may be like a rayon cotton or something. And it was kind of slippery a little bit. So the drapiness could have also maybe pulled on the dress or something like that. The dress that I'm currently wearing is made out of just some basic like quilting cotton. So it's a lot more rigid of a fabric than the first dress. So that may also contribute to the fact that I didn't need to lengthen it, and that the bust doesn't have a lot of excess fabric. But again, I made a B cup in this bodice. Now, when I sewed up the B cup at the beginning, it was way too tight. Not in the cup, I mean in the front it fit perfectly. It was way too tight under the arms, and then in the back it was kind of tight as well. But the weird thing was it was just too tight. I've got thread still on this one. Just right under the armpit, just before it got to my full bust. As it got to my full bust and came down, it was just fine. And so, with some assistance of my husband pinning me up and everything, I determined I was just gonna add sort of 5/8 to the top portion of the pattern. To help illustrate this, I have the pattern piece here, and hopefully you'll be able to see. So this is the front bodice, and what I did to the side seam is that I already knew I needed to bring the waist out a little bit. I cut a straight 16 for both of these. So for the B cup and the C cup, it's a straight 16. I did need a little extra room in the waist, but I didn't really feel like I needed a full 18. So I just graded out about 5/8 of an inch there at the waist measurement. But then when I tried this one on, I had that tightness under the arm. So again, over here, I went ahead and graded out another 5/8 of an inch. So it's got this sort of very defined curve. So it comes out, then it goes in, and then back out. That red line is the new stitching line. And because I added that little bit here, I also added it to the sleeves. Another problem that I had with this one, which I didn't seem to have, or wasn't as noticeable in the first one, is my shoulder seam. My shoulder seam was way too far forward, and it appeared that it was pulling up the back bodice piece a little bit because it was way too far forward. It didn't seem like the back bodice length was off. It seemed like the front bodice length was off. So I had it 1/2 inch to the top of the bodice shoulders at the very top to push this seam back. And while I did that, and I don't know if you're even going to be able to see it in this video, but the shoulder seam sets at the right place, but as it goes further back, it actually moves forward again. So I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if I need like a round back adjustment, or, and that could be why the back still feels tight, despite it now setting at that correct 5/8 inch, and I've added a little bit here. It sets in the right place. It still feels a little tight in the back, especially if I try to move. But again, like I said, the shoulder seam, it starts in the right place now that I added the 1/2 inch, but as it goes back, it's still kind of, that seam's getting closer to my collarbone than it is in the center of my shoulder. So I don't know what happened there. What other issues? Like the skirt fits, it doesn't feel tight, but at the same time, I have this huge gapping on the pocket. So even more so than I did on this dress. So obviously I need more width, but I don't know where because it doesn't feel tight. Like the dress has some room in the waist, it's got some room in the hips. So what's causing this pulling? I thought maybe I pulled the pocket too far forward or something. Obviously there needs to be more fabric just right in here on the skirt, and I don't know why. It's actually the same skirt pieces, but again, maybe because of the drape on this skirt made it easier for the pockets to kind of, because they do gape open, but not quite as bad as this one. So I'm not sure what's happening there. And so that's kind of where I am. I kind of started getting really discouraged, especially after I put the pocket in, and I'm like, what the heck's going on here? I tried to put the zipper into this dress. I did not have an invisible zipper, and I don't know if you're even gonna be able to see this. So I did an exposed zipper because I have a lot of zippers lying around and I didn't want to have to go buy a new one. And I had so many issues getting this zipper in, and I don't know why. I think part of it is frustration, simply because this was not fitting right. I mean, it fits so much better, especially in the front bodice, but I still don't feel like it's right. And if this was me 5 years ago, I'd be like, I got a new dress, look at this, it's lovely. But because I know how it's supposed to fit now, I don't even know if I want to wear it. I got to the point where it needs hemming, and I need to kind of finish off some of the seams on the inside, and I don't know if it's worth it, because I don't know if I'm actually going to wear this dress, because I'm not happy with it. And the same thing with the blue one here, is that I had high hopes with it, and I actually did wear this one to work one day, but the whole day I was just kind of fiddling with the front, and I felt like the color was drooping. So it came to the point where I just said, okay, this is the last one I'm gonna make for now, until I figure out what my issues are. And I am not an expert. I am all pretty much self-taught with sewing, so I can't tell really what my problems are. I do have some crafty classes that I had purchased a while back. There's the ones with Joy Mahoy, who does some fitting adjustments that I tried to watch. I do have the book Fit for Real People that everybody in the sewing community talks about, and I've gone through that book a little bit. And while I understand the changes and how to make the changes, I still am not sure what change I need to make. Like this shoulder thing, it was moving too far forward. Why? And how do I know that I needed more up here than down here? I mean, I did the pattern flat lay. So I'm getting to the point where I was just very frustrated. And I'd love to hear your comments below suggestions for me. Like, what do you see, like, just looking at this dress that needs to be fixed or revised or changed or something? I'm a little discouraged at this point with this dress and how it turned out, because I really wanted this to work, and I just, at this point in time, it still doesn't work. I'd love to hear, again, if you've got any comments and suggestions about what I did wrong, but also if you've made this pattern, and what your thoughts were. Like I said, this was a collaboration pattern review with Claire from Penguin and Pear. I'll put the link to her video in here as well. I encourage you to go check out her video and listen to some of the successes and issues that she had while constructing her version of this dress. And get some feedback. You know, everybody has different experiences with patterns. It's not all like out of the box perfect. It's not all tears as well. And of course, different sewing experience levels have different advantages. Different body types have different disadvantages or advantages depending on what it is you're sewing. So I hope you found this pattern review somewhat helpful, and I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Akram's Ideas. Thanks for watching.
Hello and welcome. I'm Akram Tag. The simple construction, the good in. If you do have any comments or suggestions, I'd love to. I'm actually collaborating. Let me do that all over again.